Welcome, everybody, to the Wake Up Call channel. I need to cover what's going on at the World Health Assembly that's taking place because they are discussing the future of the pandemic treaty. For those of you that don't know, the pandemic treaty would give full authority to this mysterious group of doctors and scientists in the event that there's another convenient outbreak where they can lock us down, force mandates, and do as they please above any government that's in place. And of course, that's very important, even though our governments are already working with them. It's very important because this way, when governments start enforcing things like martial law and lockdowns and start putting you into FEMA camps, you won't be able to blame your own government. You'll be able to blame a mysterious group of mad scientists that you'll never be able to get near. So they're trying to give full authority to the WHO. And one of the things that we're seeing is pushback. We're seeing pushback, but it's not real pushback. It's an illusion. It's like dealing with children. That's how they deal with the masses. Saying something to a child, right? Like saying, do this now, do this now. What would the child say? Naturally, the child, normally an undisciplined child, will say no because you're asking them to do it. So just like a child, if you told that same child, you said, don't do this, don't do this, don't eat your vegetables, the child might grab those vegetables out of your hand and eat them because you're saying not to, right? It's almost a sense of reverse psychology. And that's what we're seeing at play here because the World Health Assembly is going to pass this pandemic treaty. And anybody out there that thinks that they're not is fooling themselves. They're giving the illusion off that these countries are going back and forth with fairness and equality in regards to the treaty, so it doesn't look like some tyrannical bill that's going to be passed by the world governments, because then the people will start to realize that the governments have gone rogue and they have signed our rights away. So it's the illusion that there's actually a negotiation that's going on. So they're meeting together. I'm going to play for you the clip from Dr. Tedros, where he talks about this meeting that they're having right now is going to re-energize. It's going to inspire new wording in the pandemic treaty. So while some people out there think that he's waving the white flag at the end of this, he's not. He's not by any stretch. The propaganda keeps coming out. If you watch the propaganda and how they're talking, they're making it seem like we need this treaty. So they're trying to get civilians to say, what's going on? Why aren't they passing this treaty? And it's working because people out there are getting concerned that they're not passing this treaty. And you listen to the things that he says, okay? He talks about how the outbreak took the world by hostage. It was a hostage situation the last couple of years. And he's right. These people are taking the world by hostage. They're causing the outbreaks. And he says something along the lines of, he doesn't know anybody who wasn't affected by the outbreak that occurred a few years ago. But the simple fact of the matter is, I know some people who weren't affected, people who didn't have technology, people like the Amish, because they didn't know that there was an actual virus out there because they weren't paying attention to technology and they weren't walking around seeing people dropping dead in the streets. So thus they didn't think that anything was actually going on. Listen to some of the words in this speech that he gives, talking about how the number announced was 7 million casualties, but it's really 20 million. Well, it's probably a lot more than that, if you catch my drift. And keep in mind the word equity. Equity is the ultimate deceiving tool these days. They use the word equity. They say the biggest problem facing this treaty is equity, right? There's not enough equity. Don't you get it? There's not enough people who are able to access these magic potions, even though the fact of the matter shows us that they can't get people to take this even by paying them off to take it, unless, of course, they're equally deceived, because the only people that were willing to poison themselves were people who were fully deceived. Listen to Tedros. I'll talk more about it after. Listen to some of these key words in his speech.
Important. We have given it your best. And as I said, the issue now is, okay, we are where we are. We have traveled a lot. We have progressed a lot, but where are the bottlenecks? And how can we recalibrate and move? I think that's very important. As you know, when we started, the reason you have decided to have a pandemic agreement was because of the impact of the COVID-19. we say on the record more than 7 million people died, but actually that's underreporting. The estimates show that up to 20 million people died. And the whole world was taken hostage. And COVID has affected everybody. Everybody. I don't know if there was anyone who has not been affected by COVID in many ways. Not only losing loved ones, but economic problems, loss of jobs, you name it. So that's why you said, okay, this impact is because the world is unprepared. By the way, still is. And you said we have to do something. So the second message I have is we have to always remind ourselves that. Because we're human beings, when the pain is really less, we tend to forget and move on. But of course we should move on. But we should also remember the problem that happened and not really rest until the solution comes. So reminding ourselves of all the losses we had and to say never again is very important. So when we look for the challenges we have faced and finding a solutions, I think that reminder will help. Then I see the assembly actually as a platform to re-energize this process, to be honest. And let's use it as a platform to give us more energy, inspire us. So my wish is we will come out of the assembly re-energized, inspired. We will try everything, believing that anything is possible, and make this happen. Because the world still needs a pandemic treaty, and the world needs to be prepared, because many of the challenges that caused the serious impact during COVID-19 still exist. Starting from equity, for instance, was the center of this negotiation. So still exist. And we should really prepare the world. So let's continue to try everything, and anything is possible. And as we always say, if there is a will, there is a way. So I'm still positive, to be honest, despite the outcome. That's what I am. That's what I believe. There could be hiccups. The issue is, what do we learn from it and move? This is not a failure. Even when I fail, by the way, many times, I try to learn what happened and then move on. Failure doesn't stop us, it should not stop us. But this is not failure. You have really done a lot. You have progressed a lot. I don't call it failure.
So again, something else that he said that's very important is we tend to forget. Because time moves on, we tend to forget. Well, guess what? They're going to remind you again that they need this in place. If that's the route that they decide to go, if they need to create one more mini little outbreak, like, I don't know, a flu designed specifically for birds that humans suddenly, conveniently can now catch, all they need to do is release a little more propaganda on that, and then they could remind people real fast, hey, we forgot all about what happened a couple years ago. We got to have something in place here, or this could spread and we could lock people down. So we're going to pass this for the betterment of all of you. Keep being distracted with your technology and your toys. Keep being entertained by the next propaganda film that we release day in and day out. We'll take care of you. You can trust us, right? Just like when we took most of your jobs away, when we started removing free speech for anyone that disagreed with us. And then when all those people were proven right, we still weren't held accountable. People weren't given their jobs back. People weren't given money for finances lost because the government stripped them of their jobs by trying to force this in their bodies. Or even people like myself who lost a lot in regards to free speech on the internet. So Tedros is right about a few things, especially when he talks about holding the world hostage, because that's exactly what this group of psychopaths has been doing. They've been holding the world hostage. And that's pretty much the best way I've ever heard any of these people actually explain it. It was like a hostage situation that occurred. And while people were held hostage, they started saying, look, you can have your freedom back just like a hostage. We'll let you loose. Right? What's the plot of the movies with a hostage negotiation? All these movies we've seen. What's always the negotiation? What do you want? And the guy says, well, I want $1 million in unmarked bills and I'll let 2 hostages out. Oh, okay. Well, the government did the same thing. All they wanted, though, was for you to poison yourself. They even said, look, we'll even give you free gift cards, free meals at McDonald's, free Denny's gift cards, free lap dances. I remember a YouTuber covering was one of the stories out there. That they're giving out lap dances to people. And they were dumb enough to go, well, I'll weigh the pros and cons. I'll take the free 5-second lap dance to Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby. And then all of a sudden I won't have to worry about it. Oh, wait, I will have to worry about it for the rest of my life since I can't seem to detox it, right? So in the end of that speech, what you heard him talk about is how they're not going to give up. It wasn't a failure. They want people out there to think that they're not going through with this treaty, but they are going through with this treaty. In fact, if you listened closely, most people followed that speech were celebrating. And and look, I get it because I'm always the bearer of bad news, right? But these people have so much power. They're not going to give or wield any power back to the people just because some people out there see what they're doing. They use deceptive practices, right? Like convincing people they're trying to do everything they can for all of us. And people like us are all crazy conspiracy nuts, right? Listen to the key words that he used. He said re-energizing and inspiring each other, and that there's hope for the future. And all that he means is all we have to do is tell you of one more outbreak, no matter where it is in the world. And then we'll say, look, we have something in place now. All they do at these fake meetings, because again, the stuff that they talk about out in the open is never what's really being discussed. The stuff being discussed is behind closed doors. The same with the World Economic Forum. They give you a taste of the topics, right? But they don't, when you play some of the clips from the World Economic Forum, they're not talking about, we really want to poison all these people and we really want to get this chip inside their brain. They talk about, well, we're very interested in this science, this neurological technology, and the goal is to help people with Parkinson's. Everyone goes, oh, what great people, right? But if they heard the real wording of what they said behind closed doors, then they'd say, whoa, they're trying to do what to people's minds, right? They're not going to tell you exactly what their plan is out in the open because they'd be arrested if they did that. So they tell you that what they're trying to do is just have guidelines in place. And these guidelines, what people don't seem to understand, no matter what your affiliation is politically, these guidelines would give power to unelected people in the name of science. So what we're dealing with is Democrats who think that that means, well, these people know better than us. We need to be organized because these people are living in so much fear from this propaganda that whatever they tell them to do, they will do. They don't even need to see an actual virus. They will follow the protocols. They will follow the orders. And if you don't, then what you're doing is the equivalent of Michael Myers walking through your front door on Halloween night to them. They look at you as a mass murderer for not listening to rules. They don't care if you believe that the rules are made up, that the rules are, they don't care because they're living in that much fear from the propaganda that's being produced. So to me, the whole speech was a bit of gaslighting in a sense, because what I saw, and I told people for a while, I've been watching and waiting for this to start, this event. We'll see what comes out of it. I'll cover it over the span of this week that they're meeting. What I saw is most people celebrating that he opened up this meeting talking about, well, it's a failure, but it's not a failure. It's going to happen, but it hasn't happened. We'll get there if we keep pushing forward. They've got this in place. No country out there is going to reject this, or their world leader is going to be removed from office. Every pawn piece is in place. There is no voting over this stuff. They're not there debating about equity. What do people think they mean when it comes to equity? Oh, well, we didn't have enough magic potions for people in third world countries. It wasn't fair. Oh, yeah? Come to America. 90% probably of this population was willing to give all of these away because, nobody was interested in taking poison. Right? But they want to make it seem like, it's not fair. We got to put more equity in because they want our taxes to fund the death of many other people. They want us to pay for people's genocide. So I can't go into more detail than I already am on here without risking obviously getting a strike, because you're not allowed to talk about this stuff, right? But he goes 7 million people is the number announced, but it's more like 20 million. Yeah, I'd say it's like 5 to 10 times the amount from 20 million of people who actually may be very, very ill or perish from poisoning themselves, but they won't tell you that, right? And again, my favorite part of that whole speech is I don't know if there's anybody out there who wasn't affected by it. Every single person who lives free from technology didn't know then and probably still doesn't know now. And if they heard about it, well, that's only because they saw people walk around. They said, why is that guy wearing a diaper on his face? And they explained it, and they probably started laughing. And they said, oh, right, mind control. Pretty amazing, right? Mind control. But Tedros let us know. We can't forget. We won't forget. We have to not forget. Because you see, if you forget, then they lose the power over your mind. So they'll remind you, like Tedros said, they'll remind you of what we just went through. In fact, they'll go out of their way to remind you by creating more and more and more and more and more events just like it. So that the next time they decide to come out and announce that it's in place, you won't be suspicious of it, because they'll say, well, there's all these diseases popping up. They couldn't be creating diseases. They couldn't be creating diseases in people's minds, right? And the solution, of course, for all the problems, all of these outbreaks, you know what the solution is? The solution is their treaty. Duh. You know, their treaty that could take people like us and just suddenly say, we're coming to your home and snatching you up. Why? Well, you didn't take the potion. You left your home for over an hour. We think that you might be dangerous. And everyone out there will go, take them out, bring them down to that camp, because they still won't believe. They still won't believe the things that we're saying, because they live in that much of a fairy tale reality. So the WHO is meeting, or not the WHO, the World Health Assembly is meeting, and they're trying to reinforce pandemic preparedness after the treaty stalled. But I'll promise you this, because I know people out there cover this. They'll be like, good, we've stopped the billionaires. And look, God is in total control. I'm not saying that he's not. But I'm saying when these people speak, watch how master manipulators work. That's what they are. They're manipulators. And when we look at these people out there who support them, you go, how do they support Bill Gates? How do they support Tedros? By the way they present themselves as, oh, we're trying, we're failing. We want to help. They won't let us help. It's a deceptive practice. If they just came out and said, we've made a pandemic treaty, you will obey the pandemic treaty, we will quarantine. If they read what's in the fine print to the people and talked like that and said, there's no vote, there's no debate, then people would wake up and they go, whoa. But because it makes people out there, like I said earlier, like a child. They go, wait a minute, we can't have it? Why can't we have it? Because all these conspiracy nuts, we want it. We want it, Tedros. Give it to us. Because Tedros is saying, oh man, we're trying so hard. The brightest minds in the world are meeting together. We just want to help. And these people, like suckers, believe it. And that's why they go out and they do what I call the push-pull. They make it seem like there's debate, there's negotiation, they're trying their hardest, instead of making it seem like flat-out tyranny, which is what it really is. I thank everybody for being here. Video will probably get a strike, but share it with others if you can. I thank you guys again. God bless all of you and your families as always.